I just got done watching the Vince McMahon doc. It's a very interesting documentary because if you are a WWE fan, a lot of the stuff that they talk about, you already know. Like they mention the Montreal screw job, how Vince McMahon purchased basically everyone, stole all the wrestlers from his father's territory or his father's competitors' territories to boost up WWF. Basically, it's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a story on Vince McMahon and explaining how what it was like for him growing up as a child, maybe a young adult, working with his father at an early age in WWF, doing the odd jobs there. It's not really like that. A lot of it is the story of WWF and how it turned into WWE. It begins with the first episode is called Junior. So as you can expect, it basically tells the story of Vince McMahon and how he purchased the company from his father, Vincent J. McMahon Sr., and how his father did not want his son, Vincent Kennedy McMahon Jr., to basically go against the norm for wrestling back then. Back then, in the 70s and 80s, it was all wrestling territories and everything was, local. Everything was localized. I could not watch Southern Florida wrestling in Chicago, or I cannot watch New York wrestling in Chicago. I was local to the Midwest wrestling. That was the region I would watch in the 70s and 80s. Vince McMahon did not want to do that. He wanted to change everything, and he saw the rise of cable television. He knew that was the future. He wanted to broadcast one wrestling show, one wrestling promotion across America, not in local territories. Vince McMahon offered his dad a deal to buy out the company, and he ended up doing it. His dad took the deal. If Vince McMahon Jr., the son, could not pay back his dad for WWF at the time, Mr. McMahon Sr., the dad, would be able to keep the company and all the money that Vince was supposed to pay him. It was a weekly payment or monthly payment, and if Vince Jr., the son, ever missed a payment, the dad, Sr., would be able to keep the money and the company. So he risked a lot. But that's basically what the documentary is. It tells you about him basically becoming how WWF turned into WWE today. Most of it talks about the Montreal screw job, the Attitude Era, the heat from how Vince McMahon would use real life storylines like the Iran War with Hulk Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter and the Iron Sheik. I thought it was going to touch more on the whole Janelle Grant sexual abuse allegations. There is a huge, lengthy court document that goes into all of the information from Vince McMahon. It is a huge 67 pages. You can find it right now. You can just use Google and find it, and it will tell you all the deplorable acts that Vince McMahon has made Janelle Grant do. I can't remember what page or where it is in the complaint from Janelle Grant to Mr. McMahon. It mentions a top level performer that Mr. McMahon used Janelle Grant to sexually satisfy the performer to make him stay. It did not officially list in the complaint who the performer was in question, but it mentioned that he was a top level performer who is expected to sell out arenas and be able to generate huge revenue for WWE and Mr. McMahon. It was revealed in the video that the wrestler was Brock Lesnar, which is not a surprise because in the complaint itself, it says, and I state that the wrestler in question was a UFC champion, and there's not many UFC champions in WWE, especially ones that are as big or who would be bigger than Brock Lesnar. He's the top UFC champion. He is the only wrestler that was a UFC champion that is such a big draw to his name that could sell out arenas. But it was crazy that they only briefly touched about this whole Janelle Grant versus Vince McMahon in the last episode for like 30 minutes. Other than that, this is basically a whole documentary of WWE. And if you're a fan of WWE, a lot of this stuff you already know. It's just they didn't give us that. But overall, it's a decent documentary. If you're not familiar with Vince McMahon, or if you haven't watched WWE since the late '90s, like the end of the Attitude Era when Stone Cold and The Rock left, then there is a lot or a decent amount that you'll catch up on. So Vince McMahon issued a statement. The official statement: I don't regret participating in this Netflix documentary. The producers had an opportunity to tell an objective story about my life and the incredible business I built, which were equally filled with excitement, drama, fun, and a fair amount of controversy and life lessons. Unfortunately, based on an early partial cut I've seen, this doc falls short and takes the predictable path of conflating the Mr. McMahon character with my true self, Vince. The title and promos alone make that evident. A lot has been misrepresented or left out entirely in an effort to leave viewers intentionally confused. The producers use typical editing tricks with out-of-context footage and dated sound bites to distort viewers' perception and support a deceptive narrative. In an attempt to further their misleading account, the producers use a lawsuit based on an affair I ended as evidence that I'm in fact Mr. McMahon. I hope the viewer will keep an open mind and remember that there are two sides to every story.